You may have heard that your mouth and your mouth health is connected to things like heart disease, and this is not new information. We've known about this for quite some time. And basically, the mouth has a lot of blood flow to it, and so if you have a lot of inflammation, so you have gum disease, then inflammatory organisms can get into your bloodstream, and we know the connection between that and heart disease. But there's so much more information that it's really important that you know. I was listening to Dr. Mark Burhane, so it's Burhenne, and he's a dentist, but he really understands working with the whole body, so it's quite fascinating. So we talk about the gut microbiome. So micro just means small, a biome is a lot of organisms, and so micro, because it's within your body, like there are biomes all over the planet, forests and things like that are called biomes. So micro because it's in your body, and the gut microbiome is our largest, but our mouth microbiome is our second largest. We also have a microbiome in our brain, but the mouth is the second largest, and of course, you eat and you swallow and those contents go down into the gut. Some organisms don't survive stomach acid. We spoke often about people taking PPIs and not having enough stomach acid, so that leads to a whole other problem. But specifically talking about gingivitis, and this is something that I used to think was really more associated with older people, but it turns out that under 40, 50% of our population, and I believe that is worldwide, has gingivitis. So what's the problem here? There's a specific bacteria, and it's called P. gingivalis. That's the name of it. And it's actually got, this bad face, good face type of thing. As is true in so much of our health, is that something is not always all bad or all good. It has to be balanced, and P. gingivalis, this particular bacteria, is very much in that category. So we don't want to destroy it, we don't want to annihilate it, we want it as part of the microbiome, so part of all these organisms in our mouth. And when it's in that homeostasis and in that balance, then it's protective. Now, if it's not, it has a really bad side to it, and that is that it makes chemicals that can, let me make sure I get my languaging right. So it secretes chemicals that activate certain proteins, and the proteins of beta amyloid and what's called tau proteins. All you have to remember is these are proteins very associated with Alzheimer's. So you can literally have this bacteria in your mouth, and it's not in good control, and what happens is it can secrete chemicals that make proteins that indeed cause Alzheimer's. So now you're talking about a mouth-brain connection that is very established. Now, how does it get into the brain? Is via the fact that you've got, instead of nice healthy gums, you have receding gums, you have unhealthy gums, and it gets in there and then basically runs on a highway up to your brain, which I know is a little scary. But there's a lot we can do to reverse oral health and keep our mouth microbiome just as healthy as our gut microbiome. We've been talking the last few days about nitric oxide, and this has a lot to do with the mouth as well. So remember, nitric oxide is a gas. You eat foods with nitrate, you turn it into nitrite, and then it becomes nitric oxide. And this gas lasts for a fraction of a second, but that's all it needs to initiate some really wonderful protective activities. And that's where, again, we come full circle with what nitric oxide does to protect your brain. And it's made in the mouth. It's also made in what's called the endothelial cells, so that's in your arteries and your veins. So in the lining cells of your blood vessels is where nitric oxide is made, but it's also made in your mouth. So if your mouth is seeing good things like beets, we went over some of the great vegetables that are high in nitrate. So it's beets and broccoli, celery, bok choy, red leaf lettuce, carrots was in there. What am I forgetting? Anyway, I went over that list yesterday. I think that's most of them. Actually, eggplant was in there, so not a green leafy. Oh, and my favorite, arugula, was in there. So eating these things, so you get a beet in your mouth and your body makes nitric oxide, and so that's healthy for your brain, it's healthy for your vessels. And so actually this dentist was saying that 6 out of 10 of our chronic diseases are associated with ill health of our oral microbiome. So of course we've talked about heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, so we've been talking about that. Also, we've just talked about Alzheimer's and cognitive health. We talked about erectile dysfunction, so all having to do with circulation. Someone was just telling me that he thinks garlic releases nitric oxide. I will check on that. And let's see, what else did I want to tell you? So what do we do? Okay, so it's always about, what do we do for this? So we need an oral microbiome that's healthy. Find a good functional dentist or a biological dentist in your area. I mean, the good news is we don't have to go to the dentist that often. So if you need to travel to find a great dentist, it's really worth it, because they do understand the importance of treating the mouth naturally. As an example, a biologic dentist would never use fluoride on your teeth or your children's teeth, because they understand that it's a toxin and it really annihilates the nitric oxide. So you don't want to do that. They would also make sure to never use mouthwash, which also annihilates the nitric oxide. So we're talking again about heart protection, brain protection, circulatory protection, and that 6 out of 10 of our chronic diseases are associated with poor oral microbiome or poor oral health. So very important to find a good dentist. This particular doctor was also talking about the fact that when you have a good balanced microbiome, it will remineralize. So like early cavities can be remineralized, so reversed with a healthy mouth, which was great. He also talked about some toothpaste, and that's something that we all use. You don't want to use toothpaste with fluoride because of what I just mentioned. Sodium lauryl sulfate is another bad ingredient. So there's 2 brands that I found. I have nothing to do with these companies, but one is called Boca, which means mouth in Spanish, actually, B-O-C-A, and the other one is Rise Well. So it's two words, Rise Well. And they both have these toothpaste that will help with remineralization in your teeth. I looked them up. They are not cheap, but you don't need a lot of toothpaste, and you definitely, if this way you're going more toward the positive and away from the fluoride and away from the sodium lauryl sulfate, really helping your kids and yourself. What else did I want to review? As far as what you do for the good of the oral microbiome, definitely those veggies. I mean, all green leafy veggies, healthy berries, not processed food, real food, exercise, getting out in bright light. These are all things that are very, very healthy for your body as a whole. Smoking is, of course, a big negative. The mouthwash we mentioned, and then, no fluoride. What's the bad? The sugar, the sodas, the processed foods, simple carbohydrates. I mean, we talk about this on this channel all the time. And I think sometimes it's very calming and reassuring that when we come full circle to what do you do, what do you not do, that we have this stability of, sugar's still bad and vegetables are still good, and refined carbohydrates are still bad, and fiber is still good. And I forgot to mention fiber earlier, so I'm glad I remembered that. So we have certain stable stable data that are they don't change, and the good is still the good and the bad is still the bad. And so when it comes to oral health and protecting your brain, that is a big one, but it's also protecting your heart, protecting you against diabetes. So the trickle-down effect of having this oral health optimized is very, very important. So I hope you found this helpful today. If you like the channel, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, tell others about it. That's how we come up in the rankings and more people see these videos. And overall, it's just important to understand that inflammation starting in the mouth is going to then get to a lot of other places in the body. And who would have thought, oh, another study was depression. They made the link between poor oral health and depression. Same from that oral brain highway, as it's called, so that inflammation creating depression. So many things we can do naturally to move away from these diseases. And if your health is not the way you want it to be and you're struggling with some of these chronic diseases, please reach out. That's what we do here at Root Cause. So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.